Hi, we're going to talk a little bit about prevention and management of neurodegenerative diseases. And I want to frame this in terms of sort of an old model of medicine and the new model of medicine.
Where it's been, looking in the rearview mirror, and where it's heading, looking through the windshield.
Yeah. Basically, the old medical model, which really has gotten us to where we are in terms of longevity, because it got rid of a lot of the infectious and communicable diseases. That model was a wonderful model for medicine. Is if you could identify the infection, if you could find the bug that was causing harm, and you shoot it, you get rid of it, you got rid of the disease.
So you're out there looking for something to shoot, something to eliminate.
Yeah, a nice definable, bug.
Give me examples.
Oh, like malaria, I think. If you find, is it malaria with the mosquitoes?
No, yeah. Or polio.
Yeah, polio. If you find out what it is about polio, that is, and you can then develop the vaccine that protects against that one thing.
So you're defining that as the old model. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't mean necessarily that it's outmoded, because if there are infectious diseases, you still have to get rid of them. But basically, the idea was there's a silver bullet, you find it, you shoot it, you get rid of it. What we're experiencing now, because we're living longer, is non-communicable diseases, non-infectious diseases. These are the chronic diseases that things like cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, dementia. And the major difference between the infectious diseases and the non-infectious diseases is there's no one definable.
So what are you shooting at then?
Well, that's exactly the problem.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons that there's been so much difficulty and frustration in finding the cure for Alzheimer's. It's approached as though if we can just find the one thing that is creating the problems.
It's as though somebody is saying, let's use this old method, but first we have to go out in the brush and find things to shoot at. And when they find one and they shoot, and then the complex system of challenges continues, so that's not it.
Yeah.
But they keep searching for more targets.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of energy and a lot of research put into beta amyloid, the plaques and
or
tangles.
The tau.
The tau, and those do seem to be very important aspects of Alzheimer's, for example, but approaches to get rid of the beta amyloid, to reduce it.
Let me explain that when we're talking about the beta amyloid or the tau, those are markers, biomarkers, those are real things. And it's interesting the way you've framed this, that if those are real things and they are hallmarks in those with dementia and Alzheimer's, maybe we ought to be shooting those early on. But if the model is going to be a silver bullet, and these are more like the complex problems that are associated with aging, are we just using the wrong tool to go after, or the wrong methodology?
Well, I think what I'm suggesting is that I think researchers are now figuring out, recognizing that it's not any single thing.
Okay.
That it's multiple factors that are happening. So Alzheimer's, the plaques, the tangles do seem to be important, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are also. When I was in France, I bought a car and I drove around, and it kept crashing. I mean, not crashing, it didn't crash, but it stopped running. Broke down. So I would take it to the garage and they would fix what they found was wrong. And then I would drive and it would stop again, because I think it was the regulator and the alternator or something that they both needed to be fixed. And they only would find one and they would fix it. And it's the same sort of thing. If you fix one thing in a multifactorial disease, you're still not going to get the disease, because it's all of these different factors going at it. Yeah. Ron Peterson, who is at the Mayo Clinic and is very much a spokesperson for the leading research in Alzheimer's, back in 2011, I'm going to read it here because he said, thought this was a very important.
I remember when you called me and
You know,
said, listen to what he said.
He said, we are increasingly coming to realize that Alzheimer's is a complex disease. That's what I say. It's not a single unitary entity. It has no single causal factor. And it's a multifactorial disease and will require multiple interventions.
And multifactorial, we use the word combinatorial, but it's the same idea that this is so complex, we're not sure what is really causing it, but it's probably a combination.
Yeah, yeah. So there's no magic pill, you know, or the likelihood of finding one magic pill that's going to cure the whole thing is kind of, you know, so now they're beginning to shift. And an area that we have focused on, as you know, is risk factors. The science has sort of had all of these failures in trying to find a cure, but has done a brilliant job in identifying the risk factors that are associated with greater prevalence of dementia and Alzheimer's. Peterson said in this introduction to this research that I'll tell you about, he said, we don't need to be passive, however. You know, we can do something about cognitive decline. And what he was talking about was this whole approach that we've been advocating almost since 2009, that you need to address all of these risk factors. We've described the cogwheels of brain health in this combinatorial approach, and the idea is you need to get all of those working properly.
And you need to have a strategy that's going to allow you to customize that or personalize it.
Right.
And part of what we're seeing emerge is that when this new model of trying to protect and also not be passive, it isn't a stagnant situation.
Right.
Your brain is dynamic, and every day your brain changes with the rewiring, it changes with the risk factors. So it's getting a strategy that will last a lifetime.
Yeah. So the research that I wanted to point to at this point was put together. These researchers looked at a variety of risk factors, and when you look at the risk factors for dementia, there are a ton of them. You got diabetes, cardiovascular disease.
Don't depress me. But if those factors could be hit with a silver bullet, one of them, the rest of them will still be there.
Right.
So where is this going?
What this research did was interesting, was take a combinatorial approach of looking at 7 pretty important risk factors, including diabetes, which is cognitive inactivity, depression, hypertension, physical inactivity. They actually hit on a number of our cogwheels. And what they found, this was a statistical analysis much as anything else, but they were saying if you could reduce those 7 risk factors, not totally get rid of them, but just reduce them.
By how much?
10 to 25%.
Okay, that's achievable.
You know, it's possible. Worldwide, that would translate to a reduction of Alzheimer's of 1 to 3 million cases of Alzheimer's.
Who would not have the symptoms.
Who would not have the symptoms. They might have some of the pathologies, but they wouldn't be, you know, their behavior would not be showing any deficit.
So with the Mayo Clinic leading the way with Peterson, if we can get a plan to lower across the board all of these risk factors simultaneously, the results would be worldwide magnificent.
Yeah, worldwide it was 1 to 3 million. In the United States, that meant about 500,000 cases per year would be reduced. And when you add up the cost, you know, just the emotional cost for each individual and their family, plus the medical costs and so on, that's very significant.
Oh, yeah.
People say even if we can push off, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia for 5 years, if it starts at 85 rather than at 80, you've made significant progress.
Excellent.
So part of the point on this and the age-related degenerative diseases is that I think people are recognizing that the whole idea of conquering the disease and curing it is not the right approach.
So what is the right approach?
The right approach is to take this combinatorial approach that we're talking about. Brain health education, I think, which is very important to us. People have to understand what puts their brain at risk, what protects their brain. The preventive approach seems to be, once you've once the pathology has taken hold and done sufficient damage in your brain, very hard to go back and fix that. You know, you're going to be much better off if you can prevent the damage from happening from all of these different avenues.
And that then goes back to education.
Yeah.
Learning what to do, and not just doing it, but learning why you're doing it and sustaining it.
And how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So education, prevention, management of the diseases, and adjustment as you're going through. As you're saying, your brain, everything changes, you know, as you're going. So you need to adjust this. There was the Alzheimer's Disease International organization put out a report, and I just want to blow this up so I can read what they said, because I thought it was interesting and germane. They were saying that they were reviewing the risk factors for dementia and reviewing exhaustively all of the research that is there. They said, evidence presented in our report suggests that control of diabetes, smoking cessation, and possibly increases in physical and cognitive activity have the potential to reduce the risk of dementia even in late life.
Okay.
You know, so it's not only you want to prevent it as much as you can, but even in old age, if you're exposed to these risk factors and you try and take them away, you can do a better job of preventing it.
And if you do the positive things, a little more exercise. So when the term, it's never too late, now we have science saying, that's actually true. Well, that's the resiliency of the human brain. And that doesn't stop just because you turn 50, 60, 90, or 100.
Very true.